Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to this next episode of the COVID Cast, Day 4. Today we're going to be talking about the virus again, and then talking about some of the big news coming out of today. So, in continuing with our format here, let's talk about the virus. So, still, not too much has changed in the general trajectory of the virus since yesterday's episode. We have seen different developments. So let's go to the charts first of all. Actual, again, the number today will probably go up a little bit more. So we're still seeing this again, this exponential shape in these locations outside of China, the worldwide locations. And if we go to the logarithmic chart again, it still confirms that. Although, if there aren't too many more infections, it's very hard to see. But if you look at the very last dot there, the slope's down just slightly on that today. So maybe we're starting to see worldwide some of these restriction efforts. Maybe we're going to start to break this logarithmic trend, hopefully. But I suspect that will go back and forth as different places expand their testing and find new cases that already currently exist and that sort of thing. So, again, trend looks pretty similar. And yeah, Italy today, unfortunately, yesterday they reported 3,200 new cases. Today they reported 3,500 new cases. So I'm wondering if they're at about their testing capacity in Italy right now, which could be kind of bottlenecking their numbers. The deaths, again, continue to increase, and the death rate, again, is incredibly high based on what we know in Italy. But so again, my thoughts go out to them, and I hope they're gonna persevere. So the rest of Europe, we see continued increases in cases, continued lockdowns. France was on lockdown for the first time today. And they actually saw fewer cases today, but that doesn't really make sense in terms of it's not like today should really change too much. So I don't know if that's maybe just an anomaly, but something to look at there. Spain crossing over into around 11,748 cases today. So Spain didn't see quite the same acceleration in new cases again today, but still worrying, seeing lots of deaths. We're approaching on this 10,000 death number, which is most likely almost a guarantee that it's going to eventually be hit. So bad news there. Recently, I got the news. It's still not updated in the chart yet, but West Virginia has confirmed their first case. So on the day when the president said that there's no case in West Virginia finds a case. So now it's officially in all 50 U.S. states, which is worrying, has wide geographic spread across the U.S. So again, pretty much no matter where you live, you got to be vigilant. You've been, you could be exposed at any time. You got to assume that it's all around you, but don't panic because of that. Just be careful. So yeah, we're still seeing the similar trends in this virus so far, and we'll continue to see what's up. Another worrying trend, in my opinion, is Malaysia's been reporting a lot of cases recently. So yeah, Malaysia, if I scroll down, you can look at this again at the link in the description. So Malaysia's up to 673 cases, and that's up a ton from recently. They've reported now a few days where they've had hundreds of cases. And that's also a super worrying trend because Malaysia is in the 80s right now, their weather. So worrying trends here, wondering, is this really seasonal? Well, if a place with kind of a tropical climate like Malaysia is having all these new cases, it doesn't look good for the idea that maybe in the summer this will just go away. So some bad news there. Also, British Columbia and Canada just reported a jump of 83 cases today. So this is a serious virus, and again, we have to be vigilant. New York is also seeing lots of cases, and definitely with my sister being out there, worried for her, and yeah, everyone has to stick with everything. So, today I'd like to talk about, I guess, kind of looking forward into the future and how is this going to end? What's the end of this? I still think I have a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. So my best case scenario would be really we lock down a lot of travel across the world. Um, Maybe we find some sort of antiviral treatments in the coming months, and we're able to slow the spread enough that worldwide we have under 5 million cases, let's say. I think that would be a very good scenario. And we really see it flatten off, and we see a vaccine maybe by this time next year, and we really see a wide rollout, and we make sure, and this is something I'd really like to say is super important, and I think it's something we can't lose sight of. When we get a vaccine, even if the Western world can afford it or has enough money to pay for it, I really think it's key because I think that we make sure that this vaccine is free to the entire world and that everyone has access to this vaccine. Because I believe that this disease is going to be something that's affecting the developing world longer, even after the United States or Western Europe or East Asia has kind of taken care of it. I think it's going to be affecting the developing world. So we really need to make sure that we get a vaccine available to everyone for free, or at least we donate, we pool together our resources for that. I think that's really going to be important coming out of this. So again, best case is we really we take these social distancing requirements, we really test, get everyone isolated, and I think at the end of this thing, we can again keep worldwide cases underneath 5 million. Prevent deaths from getting into the millions or anything like that. Worst case scenario, I think, is that we begin to see a social breakdown here after a while. People get stressed, there's rioting, there's these sorts of things, which leads to intermingling, and we see something more like the Spanish flu, where maybe close to 1%, about 1% of the world's population dies. This is really what we have to avoid. This is what we have to be vigilant about. And I think something to remember is in our culture, we kind of have, I'd say, like this trend attitude where trends come and go. I'm guilty of it myself. I can get very into something for a short period of time and then kind of, maybe like for a month and then let my attention fade from it, and it's on to the next trend, the new meme, the new whatever. Well, I really think we have to remember that this whole process is a marathon, not a sprint, and we have to stick with it, because I feel like we're getting so into social distancing and isolation right now, which is really good, which is going to have a positive effect right now, the more we do now. But we have to remember that this virus is so widespread at this point that it's going to take time. It's going to take time, and we can't lose our focus in eradicating this virus. So just something to think about, something that I think is really important, and I think it's how we're going to end up on the spectrum of being closer to the best case scenario. So let's see. In other news, I just saw really terrible news. Earlier in the day, I saw that 4 Brooklyn Nets had the virus, which, I'm a big NBA fan. I don't want to see these guys get sick, and I would prefer to see somehow in the summer them be able to finish the season. I was really enjoying. I know I'm a bandwagon, but I was really enjoying the Lakers this year. I wanted to see LeBron win his 4th in a 3rd location. I thought it would be a really good story. So I've been very bummed with the closure of the NBA, with the suspension of the season for now. So just seeing these NBA players get it is it's bad. And seeing that Kevin Durant has it, as of when I'm recording this, the New York Times has run the story. The Athletic originally broke it, so I'm assuming it's true. And so Kevin Durant having it is bad. And 3 other Brooklyn players, it's bad stuff. So I hope they're doing okay. Obviously, with the way this virus is, I would assume that they'll be fine. But I hope that they didn't come into contact with those who might be more vulnerable. And I hope they get through it well. Plus, the last team they played was the Los Angeles Lakers. So, I want to be like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Does Anthony Davis have this? Does LeBron James have this? Wait a minute, wait a minute. In my mind. But that also brings me to another point. Three of these guys were asymptomatic that tested positive. And it just kind of shows how those with resources right now are getting testing. And we're finding these asymptomatic cases, these guys that might be spreading it. Well, these people might exist in our society right now. But because they're not famous or because they're not in the NBA with this public, like with the Rudy Gobert situation where they're testing all the teams, because we don't have a situation like that, we don't know what's up. So I think it's kind of a good symbol of the problem that we have with testing right now. And we really got to get this available to as many people as possible and just continue to do that. So yeah. Michigan today, just for Traverse Cityites. Big news in Traverse City is that a man in Leelanau County tested positive for coronavirus, and he, as far as I know, is at Munson Hospital, the big hospital here in Traverse City. So we are seeing this here now. We probably have to assume there's over 10 cases in the area. We just have to assume that. Because of a really great Khan Academy video that I'll link in the description, that talks about how a good way to estimate how many cases there are. So I'll post that Khan Academy video link in the description. I thought it was really excellent and really good. Anyways, Michigan today in total reporting 12 new cases, which brings us up to a total of 65 cases of coronavirus in Michigan. So we can assume that there's probably 650 cases of coronavirus in Michigan. So we're going to be finding that, and just got to assume it's everywhere. Just got to assume it's everywhere so that it will be nowhere. So let's see. Talk about the NBA, local situation. Okay, so tonight, there's a lot of the primaries are tonight. Obviously, the Democratic primaries tonight. A few states, but a lot of states have been pushing their primaries back. And Ohio was supposed to vote today, and they have pushed their primary back to sometime in June. I want to say June 2nd, but I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. Anyways, my grandparents live in Florida. Shout out. And they're worried about voting today in the primary, and for good reason, certainly. So I'm a little worried about the impact it could have, just in terms of suppressing the vote or people getting sick while voting. Both are pretty reasonable fears and concerns about this. So I don't know what the solution is, but it's definitely something we have to think about. So I don't know if maybe this will be a way that maybe we are voting, we figure out a better way to vote by mail or these sorts of things, or even on the internet. We're so skeptical after what happened in Iowa, of course, with electronics and voting. But maybe this crisis will lead to some innovation in terms of how we vote. And I really hope that it shouldn't be a huge factor. So I hope it's not. Anyway, speaking of that, my grandpa asked me a really good question that I'd like to talk about today. Kind of the difference between the idea of social distancing versus social isolation versus quarantine. So I guess the difference between these is kind of the connotation between some of them, and one's an actual difference. So social isolation kind of has the connotation that maybe you're not really talking to anyone or you have no outreach. So we don't want to be isolated, but we do want to have distance. So what I'm saying is, with social distancing, we're not actually face to face with people, but we can still FaceTime them, call them on the phone, talk to them, text with them, use really any medium of social media. So yeah, again, you can call people, again. So again, we want to keep distance, but we don't want to be isolated. Because, going back to an earlier point, we want to remember that this is a marathon. We had the president a few days ago kind of admitting that this could go until July, or not even this could go till July. If we do everything well, it will likely be still in July. We will have to take these measures. So we can't get burnt out. And if we're just going full isolation, we will get burnt out. So social distance means we're not going to big events, we're not going out to eat, we're not gathering with a large group of friends, or really any group of friends. We're pretty much just keeping it to our household, and we're keeping it to we go buy essentials. We go buy our groceries and pick up medications and those sorts of things. On the other hand, quarantine is where if anyone in your household, and especially once they roll out this testing, hopefully in the US sooner than later, where you can go get tested, if anyone in your family is showing the signs of COVID-19, they hopefully are going to be able to go get tested. And while you're awaiting those results, no one in the entire household can leave or do anything. And if they come back positive, you will have to remain. You cannot go out and have any contact with anyone for 2 weeks. That's the key with quarantine. So again, social distance is we're doing everything we can. We only buy essentials, but we still do go out and get the things that we do need. Quarantine, again, is you have to be completely cut off because you're going to transmit the virus. Certainly if things get bad enough, you want to go to your healthcare provider. But yeah, don't be afraid to go to the hospital if you have severe complications. But you're not going out and buying things, and your family's not going out and buying things because with the transmissibility of this virus, it's extremely likely that they are incubating it. So that's kind of the difference between social distancing, social isolation, and quarantine. Again, we want to keep distance, but we want to remain connected. So for today, I believe that brings me to pretty much everything today. Oh, here's one more thing, just talking about that. We have seen now San Francisco locking down the city. And basically, you should be operating under the assumption that my best guess would be at some point in the next 2 weeks, we will be seeing some form of national lockdown, because we're inevitably going to see a huge increase in our case numbers in the U.S. So we have to keep that in mind. So that's kind of the update today. One good news is the world is getting serious. People are getting wise to the danger this presents. So just remember, don't lose focus. We're going to get through this. This is not going to be the end of the world. It's just going to be a significant disruption. But it's going to be a disruption that we defeat. So with that, I hope you're having a pleasant St. Paddy's Day, and hopefully we all have the luck of the Irish as we go forward with this. Have a great day.